Hey guys, welcome to the Hot Tub Club where inspiration bubbles up. I'm your host, Samara Renee, and today I'm so excited we have our first guest on the podcast, and she's amazing, and she's going to talk all about her solo trip across America, and I am so happy to welcome Tashai Lovington as our guest. Welcome, Tashai.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I'm really excited to talk to you today because, as you know, I'm a big solo traveler, just like you. This awesome trip that you did across America. Number one, Tashai, can you share with our audience a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to start this trip across America?
I am an author and a book coach, and I specialize in nonfiction, specifically self-development. I've been into the self-development world for a long time, but I've also been a big traveler. I have loved traveling, and I didn't travel too much as a kid, but I think some of the things that influenced my love of travel were my grandparents and their National Geographic subscription. They had like years and years of National Geographics, and when they would babysit me, I would go through their stacks and I would look at all the pretty pictures and all the cool places in the world to go and all the different cultures, and I think that just got into my blood. Every time I travel, even if it's by plane, I'll take notes. What cool things happened? Any cool stories? My writing and my travels are connected together. I'll take notes to use for a later date for my writing.
Love that. Tashai, I know that you have a couple of books. What is the title of those books?
Yes, I have them on my site, tashai.net. It's just TASHAI.net. They're also on Amazon. Fill the Gap, How to Manifest from Where You Are Now to the Life You Want was my first one. I also have Live on Purpose, 90 Ways to Jumpstart Your Inspired Life, and Life Mastering Habit Tracker. I also have a card deck on how to edit your nonfiction book.
All of those are available on your website.
Yes.
Anyone can go and grab one book or all the books. Also, I know the card deck is cool and can be helpful for coming authors that are just getting started with writing a book, or even if they're familiar with writing a book, that they can use your cards and learn something new.
Absolutely.
I mentioned in my first episode about Breakthrough to Success and how the Hot Tub Club was inspired from meeting all the wonderful people that we met from all over the U.S. And Tashai was my roommate. She was the best roommate I could have asked for. It was so good. You're the best roommate ever. We are in the same accountability group. This is how me and Tashai know each other. We met each other through Jack Canfield's trainings like Breakthrough to Success, also Game Changers. You were in Game Changers, right?
Yep, Game Changers and Reignite. Were you in Reignite?
I was in Reignite last year. We've been in a lot of trainings together, and we're on an accountability group that we meet every Tuesday, except during the holidays. So that's how we know each other. And we started talking about life in general. I learned a lot of things about Tashai. I learned something new while on this trip about exotic pets and the pet store that you work for, which I had no clue about. The passion for exotic animals, didn't know about that. That's what happens when you like are a roommate with someone, right?
Right. Yeah, you talk about things that hadn't come up before.
I know. Also, I did want to touch on your beautiful hair.
Thank you.
And your hair company with your hair items, your beauty products, all of that to share, because Tashai is so talented. This is something that was new at Breakthrough to Success Weekend. I heard a lot of people giving you compliments. So you could tell us a little bit more about that. Like what inspired you to start your beauty line, and in particular, your hair extensions and how that all came about. Like what inspired you to start your business?
I found out recently that I am sensitive to some of the chemicals used in a lot of beauty products, which meant I am not dyeing my hair anymore. I always loved big hair. I figured, why not? Why not get some extensions? Because I can do any color I want. I can do short, I can do long, I can do curly, straight, whatever, or mix like I have right now. It's just fun. And especially not using the chemicals anymore, I feel really good about that. And just having fun and feeling like I can show what I feel. It's a lot to what you hear people say, where I feel inside, I can now show it on the outside.
Right.
Like I just feel like big hair person, mermaid hair. I've always loved that. Now
Yeah,
I
I
can have
think
it.
that's such a cool thing that you're doing because in the African American community, for years, we've been doing extensions and
Yes.
wigs to preserve our natural hair. I think it's a benefit for everyone. It's really trendy in Hollywood for people to have extensions, but it saves your natural hair from damage. And
Yeah,
that's the
it
great thing. You
does.
can change out your colors anytime you want, and you are still keeping the length and the natural texture of your hair and keeping it healthy.
Yeah, it's surprising when I take this out how healthy my natural hair is because you don't wash it as much. You don't obviously have the chemicals, the wind and the pollutants and even the sun that you would get on
Right.
drying out and all that on your natural hair doesn't really happen because it's wrapped up and protected.
Right.
So you're so right
Exactly.
about that.
Yeah. Can they also find your hair extensions on your website?
Yes, actually, that is on a different website because they always say if you put it on the same one, people will get confused. What do you do? Are you a
Right.
writer or do you do the hair? So I separated them. So that's at Ultraviolet Wind.
I love that name,
Thanks.
Ultraviolet Winds. Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
In addition to hair extensions, you had a couple other products that you're working on developing. Did you want to share about that?
Yeah, I have a hair serum that you can use if you use extensions or if you have your natural hair. It just helps protect it and moisturize it. And for extensions, it helps keep them separate and not tangly. And then I also have a scalp cooling spray. So if you have itchy scalp or dry scalp, it helps with your scalp health. And they're all natural and organic.
Love
And they are
that.
on my website as well. And a line of zero waste products, all beauty products. That hasn't come yet, but in the future, hopefully it will.
That's amazing. You have so many wonderful projects going on. I just
Thanks.
wanted to make sure that from the top, we jumped off with that before we get into our story. Now we're shifting gears into travel mode and this solo trip across America. What inspired you to want to do this trip? And was there a specific moment in your life that sparked the idea?
Yeah, actually, it's kind of funny because I had this idea way back when I was in college. So between my junior and senior year in college, I had an internship in Michigan. And the beginning of the internship, I had the idea I want to get a small RV and I have a dog and I travel across the country for about a year. Every night when I came home after the internship work ended, I would write in my notebook, plan where I'm going to go and what I'm going to do and all that. And so I was really going to do it. As soon as I graduated college, I was saving money and I was going to go do this. Well, at the end of the summer, I met the person who turned out to be my husband. And so that trip kind of went out the window. My life did a 180.
Right.
I never did it. We traveled a lot together. And our honeymoon, we went out west and did a bunch of backcountry things. So we've always been big travelers together, but I never did that solo trip. Then came 2023 and I was wanting to go to the Jack Canfield Breakthrough to Success seminar in California. And I was thinking, well, how am I going to get there? Am I going to do plane or what am I going to do? And I decided I want to drive. And I didn't have a van or I didn't have an RV, but I had my car. How can I change my car into this little mini RV and I can use my car and take a month and drive out there, go to the seminar and drive back. And I didn't want to stay in hotels all the time because I like being out in nature, but I also didn't have the budget to do that for a full month. So that's when I started looking into how to convert my car into a mini RV is what I called it. Definitely short. You can't sit up in it. Like when I made my bed in the back, the bed actually, I took the back seats out. The head of my bed was in where the back seats were, and then my legs went into the trunk. Because of that, I couldn't sit up straight in the car. It's small that way, but it was perfect for this trip. It was great.
Retrofitting your car for this trip were cool ideas. Do you had a couple of different tips for safety? Because I know that you camped out at several different spots,
I
and
did.
I thought they were creative ideas. Could you share a little bit about how you protected yourself while you were camping in your car and some of the strategies that you had?
The biggest thing anywhere is to just be aware of your surroundings. Even if I was stopping at a rest stop or a gas station, as a woman, we have that built in to us when we're alone. Be aware of what's around. You want to be aware. So that's always there. And then specifically for camping, I had a decoy tent, what they call is a 10-second tent. It's a big circle and you open it up, you unzip it, and you just pop it open and it's ready. You don't have to sit there and, put in the poles or anything. It's just ready. You just stake it down, and I would pop that up at every campsite, and then I would sleep in my car. So I called it a decoy tent. It did two things. It made it seem like I was in the tent when I wasn't. So that's a safety thing, especially at night if you're a solo woman traveler. And then if I was staying a couple nights in that place, I would leave the tent there. So when I took my car and everything and drove away, it would look like I was still occupying the site. And so they wouldn't say, oh, she didn't show up or whatever, and give it away.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
I thought that was genius, actually, because yeah, I just never even thought about that with setting up a decoy tent. And because if somebody was really coming to do you harm, I would think that that would be the first place they would check, and not so much your car.
yeah.
And you also have additional protection with your car because, of course, it's, a vehicle. So
Yep.
you also had a few things inside the car as well that were used to kind of protect your space, right?
I had all my windows tinted before I left. And then I also had window coverings on the inside. So when I was sleeping, I would put them up. So it looked like it was just black in there. It didn't look like you were seeing a wall or whatever. So it didn't look like there's anything in there. It was just black.
Right.
So that was one. And then I also made sure that I could climb from my bed into the driver's seat without getting out. If there was ever a need to do that, a bear or a person or whatever just didn't want to get out, I could do that. That is important as well,
Right.
I thought.
Right. I'm also thinking, because in my mind, I'm envisioning your car. Where did you put the luggage?
I didn't have any luggage. What I did was I bought a bunch of those. I don't know if you've seen those soft baskets. They're made with rope or cotton fabric, and they're coiled. They are the shape of a basket, but they're squishable. I got a bunch of those and I put them in the corners of my car where I wanted it, like in the passenger seat on the floor. I had one, and I had two on either side of my bed in the back. And then I would put things in there, and that would hold the stuff, but it was also soft so it fit into like the weird shape of the car.
Right.
Whereas like a suitcase or one of those rolly cases or anything else wouldn't. I did have a duffel bag too that I put my clothes in, but I wanted those other things open so I could just look in and see what they were, or I could even grab stuff from inside the car. I just reached through the trunk and grab it because it was open on the top. You didn't have to unzip anything. So that was important too. And it would help. It helped if it rained too, so I could just get stuff without going outside.
I just thought about that, and I'm like, what? I don't remember the whole luggage and like how you configured the car. Did you just put like your big luggage in the front seat? So that's why I asked, how did you get everything in there?
Yeah, and I actually made a video for my YouTube channel on how I did it, the walk around of the car. If anyone's interested, they can go to my YouTube channel and see the actual car and how it was done.
And your YouTube channel name is?
Oh, my YouTube channel name is Tashai Travels.
Love it. Love it. You have a lot of other cool trips that you have done. I loved how you documented your trip across America. In addition to just your preparation and planning for the trip, how did you determine what route you were going to go to? Was it based off of like Google Maps suggestions? Was it based off of where you wanted to stop along the way and visit? How did you determine your route to California?
Well, it helped to have the destination. So I knew Newport Beach was where I was going to end up, furthest west. I started from the Midwest, and I originally was going to do a more northern route, but since it was October, I decided to go more southern route, just weather-wise. So that was one thing that determined it, the time of the year. I didn't want to go over any mountains because I was in my car. My car is awesome, but it doesn't do the greatest in deep snow. And there's a chance, because I lived in Colorado for 10 years, so I knew that at that time of year, if I went through Colorado over the mountains, there'd be a chance there'd be snow. There would probably be snow. That vetoed that. You can't go even further north, pretty flat, because even the plains would get snow at that time. That just dictated the southern route. And then I went as diagonally as I could from where I was to get to Newport Beach. I knew I wanted to go to Santa Fe, and I knew I wanted to go to Sedona. I made sure that they were on the route as I was going out. And it was pretty much a diagonal the whole way.
Which I think is smart, because I know when I did my trip to Utah, I knew there was going to be snow, but I didn't understand that the route through was going through a lot of mountains. So when I thought I was done with the snow, I was coming back into another part of Utah that went through the mountains, and I didn't have snow chains. So I was completely unprepared. So that's really smart.
Yeah, that's one of the things that if you're not a seasoned traveler, or even if you are, if you don't realize you're looking at a map, you don't realize the topography. Because on a map, it's just one straight thing. But if you don't realize, oh, there's desert through there, or oh, there's mountains. Because on my trip, I encountered 120-degree weather, and
wow.
I encountered 32 degrees. So there was a huge range there. Even though I tried to avoid the mountains, I still got this huge range of weathers. That's another thing to, be aware of. I brought shorts and I brought long underwear.
I was just going to ask you about some of your essential items that you packed on the trip that were really important. So you had your shorts, your long underwear, just in case. What other items did you also bring that were helpful?
Clean water. I was camping. I wasn't always in a place that I could get water every day. I did bring 5 gallons of water with me. And one of that was for just washing and brushing your teeth, wash your hands, that kind of stuff. So it was clean, but it wasn't necessarily filtered. It was just from the tap. And then I had 4 gallons of filtered water every day as well. Or not every day, but in between places that I could fill up water. So I had that. Especially important if you're going to like Joshua Tree or someplace that doesn't have a lot of water. That was super important. The other thing, which may seem like, oh yeah, of course, but a comfortable bed. Because if I was sleeping in my car every day, I didn't sleep a couple days in my car because I was at the conference, and then I visited my aunt and uncle one day as well. But for the most part, I was sleeping in my car every day, and if it wasn't comfortable, that would ruin the whole trip. That was huge to have that comfortable bed. Big. If you're not sleeping well, your days are not good.
Tashai, what tips could you give someone planning a similar trip, especially if it's their first time?
Well, I planned out my whole route ahead of time, and I knew where I was camping, and I knew where I was staying in a hotel. Every night I had that planned out. And then there were a couple times where I stayed at rest stops, but I had used an app called The Dirt to get reviews from other people who have stayed in these places and see if it was a good place or not. I had a pretty good idea that it would be a good place, but I also would have a contingency plan for places like that. I would suggest planning out every place you're going to stay and then leaving the days open. You know where you're going to be. You don't necessarily have to have everything you're going to do down. So then you can have room to explore and be spontaneous when you're there. But at least have your place where you're going to stay down ahead of time. And a lot of places now you can reserve online. I had all my campsites reserved online already, and they were paid for. And my hotel was paid for at the conference. I didn't have any of that to deal with.
I was just going to ask you further down in our interview about the different apps that you use to help with planning your trip. Were there any other apps that you used that were really helpful?
I used Google Maps through the whole thing. What I did is I printed out my itinerary that my husband and I came up with. I printed out where I was staying so I didn't have to rely on internet. I had it physically printed out. I also had a physical map with me of the US, so it had every state in it. There are certain places where you don't realize you're offline with your phone. All of a sudden, your map can't adjust to where you are. If there's a problem, you can at least go to your physical map. Or you can also now, sometimes they'll let you download a map from like Google Maps offline, so you can get it offline, but you have to do that ahead of time. You can't like be offline and be like, oh no, I forgot to download my map, because then you don't have it. So that's big. When people traveled, not even that long ago, 20 years ago, it was all paper maps. Never had that issue. But now it's big. You have to remember that sometimes you can't rely on your technology.
And I can attest to that with traveling to national parks. I would say like 95% of the time when I was doing my hikes through national parks, like Joshua Tree, I had no reception. The only thing that I was able to tap into was satellite, and even that was sketchy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there are GPS devices, like you said. Now, I didn't have one of those, but if you are going off road or off trail or anything, that's definitely something to take, because even seasoned hikers take those, because if you're not on the beaten path, even if you sprain your ankle, it can be a big thing. Whereas, in town, it's not that big a deal.
Were there other safety things that you brought with you, like first aid? Did you bring anything to repair the car if needed?
I did have my jack and a spare tire, and I had maintenance done on my car before I left. I got my oil changed, and I can't remember what else I did. It was a tune-up, I think. But all the regular maintenance that my car needed, I did that ahead of time. I had them not only fill the tires with air, but my mechanic checked to make sure there was no slow leaks, which sometimes, you can run over a nail and not realize it.
Right.
I didn't want to be out in the middle of nowhere and there's a nail in my tire that I've had there for a week or whatever.
Yeah.
So, just little things like that. And then I did check in with my husband every day. I told him where I was, and he knew on my itinerary where I was supposed to be that night. It doesn't have to be, somebody like that. It can be a friend or, another relative or whatever, but somebody should know where you are supposed to be. And I would suggest checking in at least every other day, text, or if you don't want to call, whatever, just say, hey, I'm fine, send a picture, whatever.
And that's definitely really important as you travel solo, is just to make sure that you always have some type of contact who knows exactly where you are, your itinerary, and to make sure that you're safe. Do you have any tips in particular with your trip for social media? Because that's something that people who travel, sometimes you hear those stories on the news where people are posting about their trip and someone figures out where they live and then their house gets robbed or whatever. You had your husband at home, but did you have any tips for social media?
Well, one tip for social media is I was posting like what I was doing on there. However, nobody knew that I was weeks ahead. I was actually posting I was leaving when I was already a couple weeks in my trip. So there was no chance that somebody would be like, oh, I'm going to follow her. I wouldn't suggest posting in real time just because that's safer that way. But, and I don't think it's like cheating either, because it's what happened. I posted what happened on that day, but it just was a week later.
Yeah, that's really smart. I do something similar, which when you travel to national parks, period, you don't have reception, so you can't even post anyways. But just for safety wise, posting after the fact once you leave the location is probably the best thing that you can do to protect your safety.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you definitely don't want to do real time in this day and age, if you're posting something public like that. If you're sending it to your friends or relatives or whatever, doesn't matter, of course, but posting public, yes.
Yes. And Tashai, what is one of the most memorable places that you visited, and why? Why was that so memorable?
There were a lot of them. I liked a lot of places. My favorite, though, was probably Sedona. I love the landscape there. The red rocks and the blue sky, and it's dry there, so it's like super clear. It's one of my favorite places to be. I really loved that. But surprisingly, I really loved Santa Fe too. And the reason I say surprisingly is because it was raining, which is unusual, I guess. At least people think it's unusual. I guess they do get rain. But I figured it would be totally dry, but it wasn't. I loved Santa Fe too. Those two places, they're kind of high desert areas, and it's something that I love to visit. I'm not sure that I would be one to live there all year round because I like water, but I love visiting places like that. So the high desert places just get me. Joshua Tree was another one. Just love it.
It was just there.
I wish I would have been able to go with.
At some point, we have to do a collab. I don't know how we're going to do it, but somehow end up at the same national park and maybe do a hike or something, which could be really fun.
It'd be fun. Yeah. Sure.
Did you have any unexpected challenges or surprises while you were gone on your trip, and how did you handle them?
There was a funny one. You live in California, but when I first got to California, I needed gas, and I went over the line, and I stopped at the gas station, and I put the pump in, and it looked a little strange. The hose was a lot thicker and the nozzle was different than what we have in the Midwest. But then when I tried to get it out, it wouldn't come out of my car. And I was pulling it, and I was, jiggling it and moving the handle, and it would not come out. And I was like, oh my God, I'm in California. I just crossed the border, and now I'm stuck at a gas station with the pump in my car.
Oh my gosh.
What the heck? Then I asked two young guys, like at the next pump, I'm like, can you get this out? I don't know what So he came over, and I figured he's from California. He'd get it out right away. Nope, he couldn't get it out either.
Oh no.
Yeah. And so we're both standing there, and he's like, I don't know. And then his buddy, he was like, what are you doing? He came over, and he came right up, and I was like, oh, okay. And he grabbed it and he pulled it right out. And we're standing there like, how did he do that?
I wonder what it was. So, okay. So I haven't been to the
Midwest. So you have a suction
yet.
There. Yeah. But you have a suction
black
there.
cap thing, right?
Yep. It's like this thing that goes down over it that's different than what we have here, and it creates a suction.
Do you guys just have like the metal part? It's a metal part that's solo?
Yeah, like a metal part, and then this small like vapor lock thing that's supposed to be a vapor lock, but it's just like this rubbery thing. It doesn't like clamp onto your car with suction. It's not like the aliens that go, that's what I know,
I'm so
like
used to that. I'm so used to that I was like, how did you get that stuck in there? But
I know, right?
Because we're used to all the additional little regulation stuff that we have here.
Yeah. So maybe, you have a little release lever that you don't realize you're doing or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, the guy did you
lock it? Did you lock it when it was pumping maybe?
I did, to keep the thing up, and then I undid that and it wouldn't come out. It stopped the gas, which was good.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Well, you stayed calm. You asked for help.
I did. I stayed calm. I thought it was weird, and I was like, okay. And that's something you don't expect, Guy was real nice. Couldn't get it. Second guy is nice. Did get it.
Thank goodness somebody knew what to do. I love it.
I know, right?
How did you stay motivated and energized throughout your trip? Because, you drove thousands and thousands of miles, and what helped you get through those times, those difficult parts?
I brought entertainment with me. I knew that if I got bored while I was driving, it would be more tedious than fun. Especially in the more flat areas of the country where there isn't a lot of scenery to be looking at. I brought my music with me and my phone. I brought podcasts. I marked a bunch of podcasts that I liked ahead of time. I did a subscription for audiobooks, and then I bought a couple audiobooks too. I had 3 different things that I could switch between, and it actually was really good. I even drove 10 hours one day, and it wasn't a big deal.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. My lesson is most of the time when I was traveling, doing my travels across the West was that I had reception most of the time. But I did have a time where in Utah where I didn't have any reception and I wasn't able to play my Apple Music because I didn't have reception, which sucked. So now I know to download a couple albums and some podcasts just in case.
Yes. Yeah, that's another thing with, the internet. We don't realize that we're streaming a lot of the time. But when you don't have it, you're like, so yeah, you definitely want to download stuff.
And it's pretty amazing, though, as you're driving through and across our country. It's a big country, but you just don't realize like how much land and space there is.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then like that 10-hour day I did, it wasn't even, across the whole thing. It was like 2 states.
Was that Texas?
No, it wasn't.
What state was that?
It was going up diagonally. I think it was, I'd have to look at a map, but it was Nebraska, I think, and New Mexico, something like that, because I was going at diagonal. Another thing, too, was I decided to take a lower route coming back. I did Route 66 stuff.
Okay.
And so again, I knew where I was going to be every night, but the whole day was open. And the fun thing about Route 66 is there's a lot of little things that you can find along the way. Like, oh, I found a dinosaur museum that I stopped at. And, oh, I found a trading post that I stopped at. And, oh, there's this jerky place. And, it's stuff that you don't necessarily expect, and it's not like this big attraction or whatever, but you can stop, take a break, have fun for like an hour and then, or a half hour, whatever, if it's small, and then move on to the next one. It was actually pretty cool. I liked it.
I like that you were on Route 66. That's really cool that you got to go across that historic road.
Yeah, I was actually on it for quite a while. So it was cool.
Now we're getting towards the end of our podcast. I wanted to ask Tashai if there were any life lessons learned while traveling across the country? And if so, what were they?
The biggest thing, well, there's 2 things. The biggest for the actual trip was that I could be alone and not be lonely. It's 2 different things. You can be lonely with people, but to be alone and not be lonely is a good feeling. Sometimes that's really nice because you can do your own thing, be on your own schedule, and you don't realize how much you compromise sometimes or how much you're on this rigid schedule until you get away from it. Just having a break, that was really nice. And being like, well, what do I want to do? Maybe I don't want to eat breakfast at this certain time, or maybe I don't want to do this. I can do whatever.
You talked about the flexibility that you left in your schedule as well. I can attest to that, of just having an open schedule. So if I didn't feel like waking up and I wanted to sleep in, I still had wiggle room in my schedule. And I know for me, my favorite thing about being solo is just hanging out with myself and having fun and realizing, gosh, I really can have a fun time on my own.
Yeah, I realized that too. And, even going to places like I went to Monterey Bay Aquarium, it's some place that normally I would want to have somebody to go with. It's like you go someplace, you invite a friend, or you invite your family or whatever. But going there alone was actually pretty cool because I could look at the exhibit I wanted to look at as long as I wanted, and nobody was saying go or
exactly
whatever. I went and I got a crepe before I went in, and didn't matter if anybody else liked them. I liked it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It was just cool. It was a different experience. And then the other thing, I guess, was after living in my car for a month, you have to pare down to the absolute essentials. You're not putting your collection of doodads in your car. When I got back home, I really found myself purging a lot of things. I have too much stuff. And so that was actually something unexpected. I didn't realize that would do that, but I really felt like, I'm not a minimalist, but I felt like I got rid of some of the attachments to things.
Our final question is, what advice would you give someone who is considering a solo trip but they're feeling hesitant or unsure?
I would just start small. Go on maybe a weekend trip somewhere close by if you aren't ready to go for a longer, further away one. Or maybe go to a further away one, but then see a friend or a relative halfway through and stay at their house for a day. Something to break it up and give you a little win. So then the next time you're ready to do something bigger.
Love that. That's such great advice. Tashai, thank you so much for being a part of our podcast and for being our first guest ever on the Hot Tub Club podcast.
Yay!
I'm so excited and glad that you got to be the first person. If you want to learn more about Tashai, go ahead and check out her website. Tashai, can you drop your website, YouTube handle, and how people can connect with you?
Yes. So my website again is tashai.net. So it's TASHAI.net. And the handle for YouTube is Tashai Travels. My hair stuff is ultravioletwind.com.
Make sure you guys check that out to get all of her amazing products as well as her books. I know, Tashai, that you're planning some other trips up in the future with your hubby across the country.
For sure. Definitely. Not in the car, maybe, with the two of us, but still we're planning to travel.
I think that would make great YouTube, having you guys stuck in the car.
Good. It'd be fine for driving, just not for sleeping. It's too small.
That's true. Very true. Tashai, again, thank you so much for being our first guest on the Hot Tub Club podcast. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode of the Hot Tub Club. And make sure to share it with your friends and family so that they can be inspired as well. Remember that you are worthy of joy, success, and everything beautiful in life. Let's make this the most amazing journey ever. I look forward to seeing everybody in our next podcast.